You're functioning, you're productive, you're showing up, but internally, you feel scattered, disconnected, pulled in multiple directions at once. And maybe you don't even have language for it yet. You just know something feels off. Hey friends, just want to take a quick sec and tell you about a class that I've got coming up later this month. It's called Whole Women Don't Hustle for Their Worth. And it's for you if you are doing all the things, if you have all the things, and you just don't feel quite as happy or fulfilled as you think you should, or if you're just plain exhausted from your life and all the things that you've got going on. We're going to be exploring that, maybe give you some tools to help with that. So, free class, 1 hour, June 20th, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Check the episode description to find information about how to register for that. And if you can't make the time but want to come, register anyway so you can have access to the replay. Hope to see you there. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the Nourished Life for Christian Women. Today, I want to talk about something that I think quietly affects so many women, especially capable women who are responsible, who care deeply, and who are trying hard to live good lives. And yet, underneath all the doing, there's this strange feeling of disconnection. Like parts of you are no longer fully together. You're functioning, you're productive, you're showing up, but internally, you feel scattered, disconnected, pulled in multiple directions at once. And maybe you don't even have language for it yet. You just know something feels off. Not dramatically wrong, not crisis level bad, just disconnected. And I think one of the hidden costs of modern life, and honestly, even modern Christian culture sometimes, is that many women are living fragmented lives without even realizing it. Not because they're lazy or failing, and certainly not because they don't love God, because we do, but because we've learned how to function while disconnected from themselves. And today I want to talk about that. Because I don't think this is just about stress management, although that's important. I think this touches almost every area of our lives: our relationship with God, our bodies, food, rest, our emotions, our peace, our relationship, and our sense of worth. All of it. All of it. And later this month in my event, Whole Women Don't Hustle for Worth, we're going to go much deeper into this idea of wholeness and what it means to stop striving for value. But today, I really want to start with the problem underneath so much of what women are experiencing. And that problem is fragmentation. So let's talk about that. I've noticed something about myself. I can really easily slip into what I call get things done mode. Maybe you can relate to this. I wake up, my mind starts organizing, I begin mentally sorting tasks, planning, moving, doing, responding, crossing things off. And on the one hand, that's not inherently bad. It's not bad at all. It's very productive, and there's yay, more power to that. And I like being productive. I enjoy meaningful work. I love creating things, especially ones that help women. But I started realizing something. There are days when I can accomplish a lot without ever really arriving inside myself. Have you ever experienced that? You go from one thing to the next, you handle responsibilities, you answer messages, you solve problems, but your body's tense. Your mind is somewhere else. Your spirit feels disconnected, and you haven't actually paused long enough to reconnect with yourself or with God. You're physically present in your life, but internally, somewhere else. And I realized if I'm not careful, I can start living from momentum instead of connectedness. And momentum is really important, but we need to be careful where that momentum is coming from and where it's carrying us to, because the connection is where we experience fulfillment. We start living from productivity instead of presence, from urgency instead of wholeness. And one of the things that's helped me is something really simple. I've started recording little meditations for myself. Sometimes they're, I mean, real short. Some of them are only like a minute long. Some of them are a little bit longer. But what they do is they help me stop just long enough to breathe, to reconnect, to remind myself who I am, what I'm doing, and why, and to come back into my body, to come back into awareness, to come back into God's presence. Not perform spirituality, but actually experience connection. And it doesn't take long. And really, this distinction matters more than I think many of us realize. Because I think a lot of us know truth mentally without actually feeling anchored in it. We know God loves us, but do we live from that love and in that love? We know that we're allowed to rest, but do we rest peacefully? We know our worth isn't earned, but do we still act like it is? That gap between what we know and what we actually embody and live from, that's often where fragmentation lives. And this is where I keep thinking about Mary and Martha in the New Testament. Many of us have heard this story so many times, we stop really seeing it. We usually frame Martha as too busy, too stressed, too distracted. But I think there's something deeper going on there. I think Martha became fragmented, to use the term that we're using today. Scripture says she was cumbered about much serving. Not just that she was serving, but that she was cumbered about it. And honestly, I get it. I understand it. I'm sure you probably do too. She was trying to do the right thing. She cared. She wanted to serve well. She wanted to honor Jesus. And she was doing those things. But somewhere along the way, she became internally divided. Her body was in the room with Jesus, but emotionally and mentally, she was consumed somewhere else. She was consumed with getting everybody fed. She was consumed with making sure everybody was comfortable and taken care of, and was also consumed with the fact that her sister wasn't helping her. And I think that's such a picture of modern womanhood sometimes. We're physically present, but mentally we're spinning. We're praying, but we're not really connected. We're eating, but we're disconnected from our body. We're with our family, but we're consumed by mental lists. We're doing all the right things while slowly losing connection with ourselves. And what strikes me most about this story is Martha was near nourishment while missing nourishment. Jesus Christ Himself was there in the room. You want to talk about access to nourishment. Peace was there, connection was there, presence was there. But fragmentation kept her from experiencing it. And I think that so many women live this way every day. Not because we don't love God, but because we've been conditioned into internal contradiction. One part of us longs for peace, but another feels guilty for slowing down. One part wants rest, another part says you should be doing something useful. One part wants to trust God, another part feels responsible for holding everything together, including ourselves. And eventually, living internally divided becomes normal. Just so normal, we don't even recognize it anymore. And we can't kid ourselves. Fragmentation is expensive. It costs us, not just emotionally, but physically, spiritually, and relationally, because it's exhausting to constantly override ourselves, to ignore our body, to push past our emotions, to disconnect from our needs, to perform strength, not to be strong, but to perform it, to perform peace, not to live in peace, but to perform it, to perform spirituality, not to be nourished spiritually, but to perform it. And the performance is better than nothing at all, but it certainly isn't all it can be. At some point, our soul starts whispering, I can't keep living like this. And sometimes we think the answer is more discipline, more willpower, a better planner, another self improvement strategy. But really, the deeper need is integration, not becoming a different person, becoming a connected person, a whole person. all of you, a person whose beliefs, body, spirit, emotions, and actions are no longer constantly fighting each other. And I think this especially matters for Christian women because sometimes we become very good at knowing the truth intellectually. We can testify, but without allowing it to fully nourish us relationally. We know God is loving, but we live anxious. We know we're valuable, but we hustle for worth. We know rest is biblical, but we feel uncomfortable receiving it. We know we're accepted, but still constantly evaluate ourselves. That disconnect creates internal tension. And over time, we become exhausting. It can become exhausting. We become exhausted trying to maintain lives that look functional externally and are functional externally while feeling fragmented internally. So, what do we do? Well, first, we notice. That's always the first step. With notice without judgment, without turning this into another thing that we need to fix, just notice. Where am I disconnected right now? Where am I overriding myself? Where am I moving so fast that I can no longer hear my own heart? Where have I confused productivity with peace? And sometimes the answer isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's tiny moments of reconnection, a deep breath before opening our laptop, a pause before automatically saying yes, a prayer that sounds honest and not necessarily polished, stepping outside for a moment, eating slowly enough to actually taste our food, letting our shoulders unclench, asking, what do I actually need right now? Not what would make me more productive, but what would help me feel connected? That's a very different question. And really, I think many of us have been taught to abandon ourselves so early and so often that reconnecting initially can feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It simply means you're finally coming home to yourself, not changing into a new person, but coming home to yourself. And let me be clear about this: wholeness does not equal perfection. Of all those people to whom Jesus said, thy faith hath made thee whole, or some version of that, none of them went on to live a perfect life from that point. None of them. It wasn't a magic wand that instantly cured and took care of everything, and now voila, perfection from here on out. All of them still made mistakes. They still stumbled through mortality like we do, but they did it with a wholeness, with a connection to God and to themselves. So being whole doesn't mean you never feel stress or overwhelm or distraction. It means you stop living divided against yourself. It means your life begins moving toward congruence, toward connection with God, yourself, and others, toward alignment. And I believe that this is part of what God desires for us. Not just that we know the truth, but that we live rooted in it and are nourished by it, connected to the vine that is Christ. That we experience His peace, His love, His presence, not just read about it and believe in it, but really experience it. And not occasionally, and not theoretically, but in real, embodied ways inside our daily lives. So today, I just want to leave you with one question. Where in your life have you become fragmented? Not broken, but fragmented. And where are you physically present, but emotionally absent? Where are you functioning without feeling connected? And where are you striving when your soul is longing for peace? And what might change if instead of trying harder, you began to reconnect more gently? My friend, you do not need to become less capable to become more whole. You don't have to stop being productive. We certainly don't want to do that, but you simply need to stop abandoning yourself in the process. Thanks so much for being here with me today. And if this episode resonated with you, I think you're really going to love where we're heading this month as we continue exploring wholeness and integration and what it means to stop hustling for worth. See you next week.